Here's a few thoughts on setting up a 2-point sling. The front attachment needs to be a couple things. One, it needs to be out of the way. Out of the way of your hand doing manipulations, but also out of the way of anything you might be wearing, any equipment. You know, it's not pressing buttons or getting caught on magazines or anything, so that it rides nicely. And this is just a trial and error. You gotta try your manipulations in different loadouts just to see, you know, which one works for you. The other thing is it needs to be high on the bore axis. So I've got my bore axis. The higher it is, the more it's going to prevent rollover. Rollover is when, if I am high on the bore axis and I lean over, when I stand back up, my rifle doesn't roll. If I'm low on the bore axis, depending on how much weight I've got on the top of my rifle, it'll roll over when I bend over. I can mimic that here by just lowering my attachment on the bore axis. So if I roll over, you can see that now the rifle is laying flat and it's going to come back either like that or just come back upside down. So out of the way and high, and again that's just going to be trial and error to figure out. Typically it's going to be on your support hand side, but it could also be just on the top, or it could be on the shooting hand side. I think it's more rare that that works for people, but if it works for you, great. The farther forward it is, the more stability you're going to have when your rifle is cranked down tight. My sling, I usually, you know, it will be tighter than this if I have any kind of equipment or if I have more layers on. But when it's really tight and my attachment points are far apart, I don't have a whole lot of movement. You can see that if I had my attachment point close, you know, my forend would be moving around a lot more. Farther apart the better, because essentially I can get it tighter. It also makes it easier to swim in and out of my rifle the farther forward it is. But, you know, I don't like, it doesn't work for me to have the attachment point in front of my hand. To me, it has to be behind my hand or under my hand so I can hold it. It's quieter, more tactical that way. So if it works under your hand, great. If it works in front of your hand, great. The rear attachment point, a lot of people, I like a QD mount because to me it's quieter, and you know, you got to be able to disconnect your sling at least on one end in case you get all tangled up in stuff. The rear end, a lot of people will direct strap it. You can also mount it with hardware, extra detachment point, but to me it's a little bit less manageable is really the number one. It also frees up a piece of hardware for me, which saves $25 for a friend of mine who wants to just buy a sling without hardware. I can pass that off, or I can put it on another rifle and save money on hardware. I also find it more manageable to direct strap it because it's one less pivot point where it's moving. I'm controlling if I'm going over top of my buffer tube or if I'm going behind my buffer tube at all times. And so some people will attach it over the buffer tube. Again, that puts me very high on the bore axis, especially if I'm running a lot more weight on here. And so I like it there. I can also control it and run it behind my buffer tube, and that puts the gun a little bit more vertical. Typically when people direct strap it, they will go around the buffer tube. If you go around the buffer tube, your attachment point will be a little bit lower than if you go over the buffer tube, because you know the point's going to be somewhere between the slot and the top of my stock. So when attaching, also I should mention, most people are going to put it on their shooting hand side so that it can go around the rifle. You can strap it too with hardware or direct mount to the inside of the stock, but I think you're going to have a little bit less control. The stock is going to stick out a little bit farther. This way it pulls it in a little bit more, and again gives me control of higher on the bore axis or over the back. Now I do something a little bit unique, but it's worked for me so far. I don't wrap it around my stock. I strap it with the Tri-Glide holding it through the slot right there. Hasn't broken on me yet. It's been through some things. And that's it.